Hey, y'all. This is Reverence for Impulse, and I'm Weena Pauly-Tarr. This podcast is my attempt to more deeply understand and explore impulse through conversations with people that inspire me. We step into connection without any planning or agenda, but with respect for the impulses that brought us here and shape how we are when we're together. I'm so glad you followed your impulse to listen in. Happy New Year, everyone. I am coming back from a beautiful visit with my family, and that is where this podcast begins. Tim Pauly is, yes, my big brother, and the only podcast guest who has known me all of my 48 years. Tim has also done several SEAM series with me and will be a part of my upcoming SEAM course this spring for SEPs, therapists, and somatic coaches. Tim, and I'm definitely not biased, is one of the best brothers there ever was. He's worldly, he's super funny and smart. He has profound integrity. He's had wide-ranging careers, and he's currently working as a Strozzi Institute trained somatic coach. Tim and I have a lot of overlap in the things that move us and make us laugh, and deeply respect our distinctions from each other. I think what I loved most about this conversation was exploring yet another way for us to be with each other, talking on a podcast. It felt deeply personal and fun, and we both got a good laugh out of the ridiculousness of it all. I hope you can enjoy it almost as much as we did.
Got it.
Got it. Hi. You want to, so we just did our 5 minutes of AM. Do you want to share first?
Sure. I'm having a very strong high school vibe today. Like I Felix just turned 18 today this morning, so he came up for his birthday and something like his senior yearness and then I don't know, just remembering that era and then doing like a little collaborative thing with you or like some of it felt goofy
Mm-hmm.
or funny. Bodies are funny. Like let's do this funny thing. Um, but I felt, yeah, like there's a bouncy energy. So I felt like I went into a lot of places in 5 minutes in my movement. And um, it was fun. Like I just was coming back to like what I've learned in SEAM series and like working with you with AM and stuff. It's just like, um, sure, like whatever just happened, sure. What else? Or what next? Or where's it going? What's happening? And so it just felt fun to do that. I haven't danced for a while. So most of my movement has been like organized. So it feels good to do that. And then yeah, watching you, this like also where I got some high school vibes. I feel like that's a shirt you would have worn in high school.
Totally.
And you had a phase where your hair was up in buns in high school too.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of like, yeah, I could just somehow transported back and trying to think if there's anything from your movement that I don't know. Like I like the noises. I think most of the times that I've done AM, people are pretty quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Voice is a strange it's a strange aspect of us. It wavers. It shows so much. It's like you know it's a weird, such a variable piece of us and such a revealing piece of us that I think it's easy to be silent, which is cool too. But
Yeah.
I appreciated some of the noises I heard you make just because they felt like part of the picture. That was my How's my hair?
It's looking real good.
Okay. How's yours?
God, it was so hard to like be disciplined about doing AM because I just feel giggly and like the word happy is really imprinted on me today. And it almost makes me want to cry because I haven't felt happy like that word so clearly. So when I was like, you have to do AM first, I was like, I just want to like giggle and make jokes and have fun. Um, But then I realized the value in it for me is like actually having to feel all the bubbly giddiness and not do anything with it, which, as you know, like containment is difficult for me. So, like watching you, I had to sort of like be with all that inside myself. And then it shifted in watching you. And then I almost started crying because it was like, oh my God, this body, like I know this body so well. Like I just know your body. And I was like, how many bodies do we know so well? Like like the way your back is or how your shoulders move or like the way you stand and the posture and the movement. It's like so deeply ingrained in me. And that then all of a sudden I was feeling a lot of feelings and then like wanting to giggle because the one pose you did, which I do all the time. That's what made me laugh. Also, you started laughing, and I was like, I think I do that every AM. Actually, my hands and feet move in the
This
same
one?
way. Yeah, it's like those recognizable, familiar spots that are like so deep in my bones, and I just was like loving that, and also just loving how you're so fucking up for it. Like all the weird shit we've done together, including this, and you're like, sure, just I like I don't know if it's familial. I think part of it is, but there's something about your I don't want to say confidence, but like your it's willingness, but it's more than that. It's almost like enthusiasm to try. I don't know, like let's go see what this is about. Like such a there's so much energy in exploring and wanting to know more in an experiential way that feels so good to be around. And then moving was like, I'm so sore today from weird, like you said, I've been doing a lot of running, so a lot of sagittal plane hit workouts. I like tore the shit out of my calves, not on purpose, but it was like jumping 27 different ways for 30 minutes. The next day I couldn't go downstairs. Still feeling that. And then we did a photo shoot for press for Monster Morning yesterday. And we haven't really stepped into that movement in a while. So my neck and head from whipping around, and I have like a nose bruise from Katie's knee. I mean, there's sort of like some sort of like banged up, but it doesn't feel bad. It feels like a body that's used. Feels like I'm in a body that is doing stuff. And that feels really good. It also, like you said, to move out of these um exercise planes of like me, and get into like spirals and weird, like awkward places feels so good to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the high school thing for real. Because when you started moving, was flashing through like the willingness thing. And then I was thinking of you in photography class and those weird pictures you would take of me and just like all these different ways. And I was thinking of Burning Man. Then I was thinking of some New Year's Eve dance party, just to be like the way we've been like creating or exploring together in our bodies through time, making forts and toilets in the ground and like just it's
Moss Gardens.
moss gardens for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know, a moss garden is wonderful carpeting for any fort.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to, just a nice way to bring in a different color element and some texture.
Yeah. A lot of forts are really just doing that leaf dirt thing. And we
Right.
wanted to shake it up a little. We
We
wanted
wanted
to
to
like,
mhm,
yeah, like you said, bring in some texture, bring life
bring,
inside the fort,
yeah.
you
So
know?
not just push it out, but like
Right.
invite it in. And to
Right away.
gather different parts of textures from around to create its own environment.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I loved about it is going out and taking what was not ours and then putting it in our space
And
and
making it grow how we want it.
claiming it.
Yeah. Ah,
Well,
okay.
is there a zit visible on that eyelid? I got a zit like in the middle of my upper eyelid. I'm like,
Interesting.
I don't think I've ever had one. Talk about high school.
All right. So weird body elements. We're going there. Okay. Earlier this week, I woke up with radiant pain in my left wrist, unidentifiable, never experienced it before. Was clear I was like starting to die of something, rheumatoid arthritis or something. It stayed there. It moved into my arm. It was like a cloud of pain that moved through my arm. It sort of dissipated. I cannot tell you the origin of it. I'm happy it's leaving.
Hmm.
These things are just sort of, I mean, perhaps they're with any body, but an aging body, I would say a body over 45, it carries a different tone.
Yeah.
Eyelid sits.
Was that why are you happy today?
Because I have been, as you know, in this sort of existential crisis with work and what I'm doing outside of the roles of mother and wife and friend and daughter and sister. The other roles really cannot, very confusing, cannot find my way. So it's been like a month of incredible waves of doubt, of deep grief. Like I was laughing because yesterday a Green Day song came on and I started crying. It's like just right there because it reminded me of like Nick and Eddie when they were, 6 and 7 or whatever. So it's like it. And so yesterday, I didn't really want to step into the studio for this whole long, it was a day long because we had to build out the set. We had to put back on costumes. And there's something about remounting a piece that you've already made. It's not like tumbling down the hill, gaining momentum, and then it like exposes itself and is seen. It's like it's already gone through that. So then you're like pulling it back out of the closet, not really feeling like what is this? And putting on these, it felt hard. And so we put some music on. And I think the thing that shifted was play. It started to become so funny. And Katie and I's pocket is often comedy and humor. And so I found myself like not being funny, not being able to laugh in the beginning. And then like an hour or two in, I just like something shifted and I started having access to play and laughing and silliness and ridiculousness. And then it became this like really joyful, fun thing. After that, we went and had dinner with another friend we love and then saw another friend's show in the village. So I was gone all day. I was outside of my home. I was not in mom role. And I kind of pushed through some of the resistance to just show up in these places. And it was the best medicine. And so it's like I woke up tired, but I feel so bright. Like I feel like I found my light again, which has felt really turned down. And it makes me like deeply grateful for friends, deeply, deeply grateful for what it takes to like keep a space open in your life where you play
Hmm.
and not even structured play. I mean, for some people, maybe it's like adult soccer games or but for me, it's like fabric and costumes and weird music and silliness. And it feels like the medicine that I really needed. I don't know how long it will last. I'm sure I'll fall off a cliff in a couple of days, but here I am, like relishing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder sometimes what that lever is, or that sensitivity is to like whether I'm happy or down, like how much how much I'm emanating really feels like, maybe that's the word that I go to a lot. In French, there was some rap song, maybe it was MC Solar, like back in the day, but he says j'émane, like I emanate. And that word, like emanate, even like in English, also just really carries like, am I emanating or am I kind of quiet and dark?
Mm-hmm.
Not Nothing much is coming out of me towards. Nothing is, whether it's being contained, whether it's just gone real quiet, whether it's whether it's dying, whether it's, but I have a sensitivity to whether like shine is happening from inside of me out or not. And like, for me, coffee is like it's like
An emanator.
it's an emanator. I used to like, even when I was like a very occasional coffee drinker, I would have coffee and I would do my normal day, and people on the street would start talking to me.
Yeah.
Like, and then other days, nobody would talk to me. It was so obvious, like the different projection of energy and micro postures and face and speed, or even buzz, or the unseen, unknown things that are emanating out. Like, so I feel very sensitive to that. And today I feel like medium, but I'm like, I feel more like here with you. Like, we haven't actually even chatted a
I
whole lot in
know.
the last couple of weeks. And um so I'm feeling that. And the role thing that you're talking about makes a lot of sense to me too. Like, the situation that I'm in, I think, like we had talked about, maybe this one of the themes of this talk being um, the struggle to initiate, maintain, cultivate a helping profession, business,
Mm.
while like kind of, well, in general, just that theme. And for me, that's meant um, living with family. Um, that's meant leaving open space in my days so that if people book, I have space, like not taking a full-time job and having a part-time job that's mostly in the evenings and at night for money. And something about that configuration, I can easily end up very alone.
Yeah.
Like, I'm with family, but I just end up very alone. And if I don't go see people, yesterday was the day I decided I can't be here, and I left the house and I met a friend for
Mm-hmm.
coffee, for lunch, came home. But like, I get very imbalanced trying to leave all this space to be a professional, and like not wanting other things to, like, I don't want to just like revert to like having a temporarily rent free, like hanging out with my friends. Like, I don't want to be in high school again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, friendship is important, and the friends who you can play with, especially,
Mm.
an added energy of like touching into the emanating parts.
It's funny because this morning I did this invariant thing I do, the most indulgent thing. It's like it's like my little secret treat, where when I take a shower, because it's like a stall shower, but if I sit down with my knees up, there's something about the shower on my knees that feels so delicious. And then I just stay in there and turn it really hot for a while. And I'm like, in my head, I'm wasting water. It's indulgent. I can run through that. But when I'm in this sensorial part of it, it's so delicious. It feels so good. And while I was in there, I was thinking about like how we make decisions toward happiness, and that doesn't necessarily sustain it, right? Like my work, I do because I love it. It makes me happy. But that doesn't mean that every time I engage in work, I'm happy. But there's something about this whole, my life as, and it's hard for me to even say artist because that word feels so uh pretentious and comes with all this weird baggage I don't really
How about
understand.
creator?
Creator, yeah, that seems right. But I also don't want to like diminish the value of art and art. I don't want artists to, I don't know. There's a lot of baggage in there. But when I think about it, the relationship to making that piece last year was, and to being in work in general, has been the through thread of my life. Like forever, I've been doing that, dancing and performing and finding different ways of that. And I never try that hard to have it in my life. It's just always seems to be there. Like somehow there's flow towards that. It continues to happen. And sometimes I'm like, why don't I just throw myself at that? Why don't I just own it all the way? And I know why. It's not sustainable. I can't earn a living doing it. And I don't want to write grants for a living. And, but there's something about, I don't know, like to what degree am I like avoiding that feeling of deep joy because it's hard for me to equate it with sustainable value, and or like maybe it's about deserving of it, or I don't know. It's there's a lot in there. I also do really love the work I do, and it does bring me a ton of happiness, and it's incredibly stimulating and exciting. So it's not like I feel a desire to let that go. But it's just interesting that I've always put energetically and in my heart the art stuff, the dance stuff as secondary. But in fact, it's the thing that I find myself doing over and over and over and over again. And I don't know, it felt like a little bit of a divine affirmation that I should keep doing it because of how it feels today. What's happening now?
I'm practicing leaving silence. One of my problems, one of my challenges in some one-on-one sessions is that um, I get very animated by what's happening, and I want to say and share. And also, I do think that there's a real value in having a mentor or mentor, like just somebody who's been through something earlier than you or before you. It doesn't necessarily have to be via age or somebody who's an expert or anything like that, but somebody who has experience to share. And so sometimes I feel like I'm that person. Like I'll be talking to people who are maybe having like initial experiences about offering touch to their own body, or initial experiences about greeting a part of themselves that they kind of have always known is there, but just haven't really wanted to turn towards. And that's something that I've done and still do, but it's something that I have already done. And sometimes I have these impulses to want to like, um, well, when that happened for me, or like that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and that can be useful, but it's very different than the experiential learning of just being in a space and having an opportunity for your own body, mind, and heart to kind of wayfind themselves. Like maybe just with a little bit of a safer environment, or maybe there's like a distant glow in the distance that I've helped create that catches their eye. But I don't want to like ultimately, I know that there's a greater value in these sessions for people finding their own way. So I was practicing silence there to see what you'd say next.
Um,
And you what's happening now'd me, which is sort of like I see you and I raise you one, like if we
mm,
were gambling.
yeah. Totally. Um, yeah, oh God, I'm having a ton of like competing thoughts. I
Can
remember
we just
early in
wait?
yeah.
Can we just say one thing? Can we go ahead and
Please.
say, like, person to person, that we don't care if this ever comes out as a podcast or if
Oh
it
yeah,
holds any interest for people?
100%. All of mine are like that. I actually
Okay.
find like this is an exercise in just um showing up with presence to somebody else, and then you see uh you allow it to be witnessed, and that's the end.
Yeah.
If you
Because
think of
I already don't want
AM,
to listen to this podcast.
stop. You don't know who finds value.
I'm already
I
back on Instagram.
Do you want to go, Tim? We can stop right now. Here's what I was going to say. I remember early in my Phoenix Rising yoga therapy training, I don't know if you remember my teacher, Karen. Like she was like and still to this day is the person I reflect back on or try to remember. And she serves as almost a deity in a way that I sort of like pray to or try to call upon when I need help in sessions. And because she had so much, she had the ability to do presence in a way that required nothing. Like it felt like you were sitting down with God, whatever that is. Like it literally was like, and it wasn't gushy or like love, or it wasn't that. I couldn't even really place it in words. I like that empathetic nod. I do that a ton. But she said, what if you just, in those moments when you're like, I really want to share in this session, I have a thing that's like inside, you're saying something, and she's like, imagine having that and imagine just communicating it to them without words. And that helped me so much because it was like, oh, I can almost still communicate it and not say anything and trust that they're receiving it on some level or not. But like that was what helped me keep my words and my stories to myself. But I also, in tandem with that, have play and feel like I talked about this in the last podcast with Michelle, who's also does one-on-one work, that it's often an edge for me to now say something now. And I'm playing with these edges of like elderhood or like stepping into this older place in your life where you do know some shit. Like, and you can offer your wisdom and guidance and people not take it too, like, or it not resonate. Like that's all good. And there's like a weird space in there between what we were saying, which is like that presence and containment in a way of like perhaps communicating in other ways, and also stepping into the uh, minds and bodies that we are and sharing that vulnerably or openly with someone. So
Mhm.
it's hard for me to know where to go sometimes with that.
Yeah, well, I have I think the sharing of my experience, I'm sure there's a whole narcissistic point of it, like as well, where it's like, ooh, me, look at me
Let's bring it
and
back to
listen to
me.
me. Yeah, like this, me, am I seeing? Do you see me? Do you see my, I had this experience and me and I, and like, there's definitely a part of it that is just that basic craving for acknowledgement. There's a part of it that's like, I join you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a craving for a bond, sort of a bond, some kind of like recognition, reflection, connection. But if I think about it from the artful point of view of like being a like coach, therapist, helper profession person, um, there's also like some, for me, it's like seed planting a little bit. Because I
Mm,
really think that in like I have from 12 step, I have a sponsee that I work with, and we talk once a week for an hour. Usually it's on the phone, sometimes it's in person. And that person is coming to me specifically in the format of this mentor, mentee, sponsor, sponsee relationship. The premise of the relationship is you've been through more than me and have something to teach me. You have something to tell me about your experience, strength and hope, like to transmit down the line. And my experience in that format is that this person is, we've agreed that that's what they're seeking. So they're not coming in for an experiential
mm,
phenomenon with me.
yeah.
They're coming in to talk, and they're coming in to hear from my like. And so I'll, in one session, let's say that they're super agitated about something that's up in their life, and I'll bring this perspective from my life and my experience with similar things, and they'll really resonate with it. They'll be like, yeah, no, that makes so much sense. And, oh, thanks for sharing that. And then about 15 minutes later, they're all riled up about the thing again. So it's like they did not experience transformation in that sitting from me sharing my experience. But some little seed of was planted of resonance of like, oh, a little glimpse of another view, but now I'm back to my main way of moving and being. And but I had this little glimpse and like some little stretch. And over time, that's kind of how we soften and expand ourselves, I think. So it's like it doesn't, I think that that's really the key difference is like it's seed planting when you're sharing something like that, but it's not part of a person's transformation. You don't hear
Yeah.
something and transform.
No,
You
no,
might
yeah.
hear one word, or you might see one movement that allows you to cry, and that cry is part of a beginning of transformation. But you like my experience doesn't transform them at
Right.
all, but it does plant little seeds.
That's a great distinction.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels so much like improv. And like the gift to me of improvising with people, especially with something like movement, where being clever verbally or sort of in that real thinky way isn't, I mean, it can be, especially if you're doing like comedic improvisation, but I mean like movement improvisation, when you're with another body, it is such a conversation, and it's the challenge of making in the moment responsive adjustments and recalibrations and is so key, and it is entirely dependent on you letting go of agenda and really trusting in the moment, even if it is quote unquote wrong, that that's actually part of the unfolding. And I think I feel like it's a skill set that should be taught to everyone across the board.
Mhm. Yeah, I had my first in-person session in a long time a couple nights ago, and it's somebody I know, like kind of a friend of a friend. And I know this person to be like I've never seen them off the rails. Like they're pretty steady, like pleasant kind of a person.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and they were curious about my work and like the invitation was like, can I book a session? I just want to really see what it's like, see what it's about. And part of a somatic coaching session is starting off with like, um, so like, what would you like to get out of this session? And, you know, what do you know about that? What might get in the way? What would be ways for us to judge at the end that we'd made some change or movement or had some shift occur? Like being pretty concrete about directionality. And this person was like, I just really want to know more about how this works. And I'm like, it was like, I'm not, what would be a good metaphor? It was like um, something that's like in between water and air, like kind of like you can kind of feel it, but you can't quite use it for leverage or anything like
Hmm.
that. And it was like, um, well, what's like, what kinds of things are up for you? Like, what's something you'd like to use? If I'm a tool, how would you like to use me for this hour? And like little by little, we got into this idea of, but basically every response from this person was like, sort of like, things are great. Like they might say, yeah, I'm looking at this particular issue. And I'm like, well, what are some of your thoughts around that issue or what's comes up for you? Well, I mean, actually, I feel pretty good about it. And I'm like, okay. Like, you don't have to have something terribly wrong or be in crisis for me to be helpful. But it was more like just this. I went in with this idea. I kept looking for like a toehold. What are we going to
Yeah.
work on? What are we going to work on? And
Teflon.
it kept being this sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah. You've probably like experienced some clients like that. And so what was interesting for me is that after we had kind of established like kind of like good students, like,
Yeah.
okay, well, here's an essay topic. Here are the three parts,
Yeah.
and each one with like A, B, C, D, like everything. All right. Then I was like, well, given all that, if we're going to be these good students about the work, here are some practices that come up for me that might relate to some of what I hear you saying. And I offered like two or three things and asked which one that they wanted to do. And they picked this one, and then we did it. And by the end of it, when I asked like what was up, there was this moment where like we had been standing and kind of doing a standing centering practice. And I was like, what came up for you at the end when you're speaking into the unknown? Like we've located you and now you're facing your unknown future. Like who do you want to be? What do you want to bring into that space? And there was like a pause where they didn't have an answer. It's like suddenly we're not in the outline anymore, the essay outline. And they were like, oh, the word honesty is coming up like really strong for me. And then as we debriefed that and the exercise, it was like something totally meaningful to this person that really came about in the last 11 minutes of a session, whereas the first part. So it really is like I had to work on my side a lot in that session to really just be like, okay, there's no traction there, or okay, this is like just shifting gears and sometimes repeating and sometimes getting quiet and making it a little bit uncomfortable for them, and like, but it really is improvisational, and like I felt satisfied by the end. I guess partially because I felt like the person had a truth type experience emerge from them versus a script, but also because I really trusted it was a meander. It was a complete meander.
Hmm. Yeah. I feel like
It
I've
was,
had sessions
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. They're so hard because you're trying. I mean, I feel like I'm trying to bring value here. Like, want this to be
Hmm.
valuable for you. And I don't know how. I don't know how to be of value. When you first said it, I was thinking, I've had a lot of sessions where in Phoenix Rising, we used to always set an intention. And I always had this client who would always say, I don't have an intention. I'm just here for whatever every single time. And
Hmm.
I would always ask. I always asked anyway. I was like, and I said, and here's the time where I ask what your intention, and he would say same thing. Um, and it's almost like what I learned from him was that his communicating social brain didn't have language for what the longing was, what the want was. It was in his body. It was somewhere in there. He had an experience of it that happened in the session, but we weren't going to get there or even form it as like a thing to place between us. It's like, here's the thing we're going to work on. It was just something
Hmm.
sort of mysterious. And that's when I think, God, like I trust the body so much in
Hmm.
just, and in the timing too. Like, I think for things like authentic movement, it's so, I don't want to say confrontational, but it is so immediate and weird to just look at someone and have them look at you, that there's all the protective impulses and strategies that sort of get in the way of like shaping yourself or trying to be good about how you see and like all that stuff that happens, it takes time for it to start to fall away. And in the only way that we can arrive at a more vulnerable, intimate place is literally just time. Like it's just time.
Yeah.
There's no special word, there's no specific movement or posture or phrase. It's just time. And sometimes I think about that because I like fast. I move fast. I can be speedy. And there are times where, and I see this in Ori too, like I can't write because my brain's going fast and I cannot deal with how long it's taking. Or I'll be like triple tasking something because I'm thinking about something, I'm brushing my teeth, and I'm also trying to like get a thing for Joni. And every once in a while, I'm like, Weena, it takes the time it takes. Like writing something takes the time it takes to write it. So let the thing take the time it takes. You can't make it take less time. And it's like, oh, right. It's the same with improvisation. I can't find, if I'm in a, Katie and I did authentic movement before we had rehearsal yesterday. And it just was like, I wanted to drop into some deep connection to myself. And I like, it wasn't available. And I just was like, it's just time. I need to do this for an hour. And then I'll be able to, like you said, locate myself or feel some relationship that's familiar enough that I can start to explore it. Otherwise, I just feel like I'm bopping around here or there, which is also fine. There's no like, it sounds judgy that that's a bad way to be, but it's more that there's like a deeper, like guts sort of place I want to get to.
It's not, I don't think it's judgy to want to have a peaceful relationship with what is. Like what is already going to be infinitely varied, right? Like any day. But it's like, it's not like I wish to have a peaceful relationship with what is. Like I wish to more, I wish to align myself more with what is. I wish to resist what is less. Like like that's a good long to me, that's like a legitimate longing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's not like, so if I caught myself in a similar situation, it would be like, yeah, like it is okay to bop around and it is okay to be dysregulated and like
Mm-hmm.
it's all okay. But I want to have a peaceful relationship with my dysregulation or, or with the dysregulating influence that's happening in my day
Mm-hmm.
as peaceful as I can. Like but the goal there, I do have a pretty clear goal. I want to be in peaceful relationship with what is. Like I
Don't you
do.
think that's challenging as like a practitioner? Because I mean, here's the difference, I think, and I think it's deep, but the financial exchange of someone paying you creates an expectation and a specific transaction. And so the way I guess in my brain it's made the most sense is I'm being paid for this time and energy and past skill set and education. I'm not being paid for the content of this time. That's been helpful. However, there is still some level of pressure of, me being peaceful with like the fact that the session isn't going anywhere and has no value and this person's upset. Like, I'm maybe that's okay, I guess. Or there's an opportunity here to like seek out mentorship or find help. Um, I don't know. There's a layer that comes in terms of that transaction and that relationship that feels different from an improvisation with somebody in a studio.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we feel as practitioners more expectation um,
To
on the
provide.
creation, yeah, the
Yeah.
creation of value and like coaching has this very tangible, practical emphasis, right? Like one of a typical closing question might be something like, well, what from this session would you like to carry forward into tomorrow and the rest of your week or the rest of your life? Like, what here feels worth carrying forward? What here feels worth repeating? And like sometimes when I hear the word practice, I just want to like, yeah. but the like the founder of this school, Richard Strozzi, Heckler, he's like, I whether it's his quote or not, I heard it out of his mouth, but he's like, you're always practicing something. So I'm practicing dissociation right now. I'm practicing engagement right now. I'm practicing walling off right now. I'm practicing like overloading my life so that I don't have to think about other things, so that I can kind of give myself peace from something that's like agitating me inside, whatever it is. Maybe it's mostly like strategies of avoidance or engagement is really what we're talking about with life. But you're always practicing something. So it's like I like the idea of like I like the idea of value being something like that.
Tangible.
Like besides just what came up in the session, like what would you like to practice? What would you like to carry forward? And like, the time thing comes in there too. Maybe like I've had a lot of one-off sessions with people because I have a fellow coach who's been feeding me clients who are looking for more specific one-on-one work in the somatic realm. And it's set up as they're sort of like coming for a session versus I'm trying to engage a coach for an arc of sessions. So I've had many one-offs that have no promise of continuation. And some part of me is like, like I want to dance to win the other 9 sessions a little bit. Like, what's the parlor trick that I can pull out that will make them be like, whoa, this somatic coaching thing is really this thing. Whoa, like, where do I sign up? Kind of a thing. That voice isn't super loud in me, but I feel it. But at the very least, I have this wish that like, if I can't provide a lot of change or value or content in one session, I do like the idea of like you're practicing something and consider that idea. Like something that some part of what came up between us in this hour probably has enough meaning that it would be something you'd like to continue experiencing in your life. How are you going to do that? Like one way is to put these weekly or bi-weekly check-ins with a coach as sort of like markers or points on the path. But ultimately, it's really what you're doing for yourself. And so, in other words, I'm shifting the idea of value as to something that really becomes part, like their choices about their life is where the value is. Like, yeah, I don't know.
So I had a question that popped up and promptly left. I'm going to wiggle around for a minute, wiggle it out.
I was just droning on and on about something. It probably like
I really
put that part of you
glazed
to
over.
sleep.
No. Oh, I know what I was thinking.
That is a good reason also for me to not talk in sessions. Is like
Why?
I've talked enough that I see the glaze happen sometimes, and I'm just like,
oh yeah, I know all the time. Well, then you say what's happening now, and they're like, I'm dissociated because I was bored. You're like, great, let's work with that. No, I think that there's something about there's something about when you talk about somatic coaching, it does have such a tangible piece to it. Whereas I feel very resistant to like providing homework or like a like tangible thing to go with. And I feel deeply uh I don't know what the word is. I am struggling right now. Part of this existential, maybe midlife crisis. Who knows? I'm not 48 yet. I'm almost 48. I feel like it's supposed to wait. It's happening though. Is where is the tangible impact? And I don't mean like I need to see my effect in the world. It's more that like, am I just in a place of like absorption, consumption, allowing, like this weird passivity? Like it is a relationship that I feel, because so much of what I do is movement in time. There's no relic, there's no homework, there's no thing to show you, there's no book, there's no guide, like there's nothing, there's no tangible thing. Dances go away, all these things go away. I think it's why I'm so enamored with photos, because it's like it's a thing that stayed, that reminds me of time and movement, or time and place. But I've been recently like, I need to engage in direct, tangible effect. I need to dress that wound and put a band-aid on it and see that there was a tangible, engagement of healing. Like I feel that.
As
And I
like,
don't know what to do. It's like I've literally went into a deep hole of like looking into the medical world and nursing, which is not, I'm like, one of the hardest things you could possibly do. Talk to a friend. He's like, oh my God, don't you dare go in the healthcare system. You'll die. Probably true. Um, but also like it feels like there's an imbalance of like things that I do that just are only happen in the time they happen. And so it's interesting to think of like, how do we bring back balance? And I think what's fascinating, or like I don't know, I want to know more about somatic coaching because of that tangible piece. It seems to like have a real balance of, we're using this time and doing stuff, and here's a thing you can hold on to, which Phoenix Rising kind of had. So I feel like I have a sense of it, but I see you glazing over. And glaze.
no, wait, the last word I heard was Phoenix Rising. Let me say something about that.
Let's say something about the name of that work. Not a great name. It's an amazing school. Not a great name. It's very large.
Yeah, the tangible
I was part
aspect.
of flying too close to the sun therapy.
No, Phoenix, I don't think the Phoenix didn't fly too close to the sun.
No, I was creating another modality with a very larger than life
Oh,
name.
okay. Okay, got it.
Got it? Okay, let's rip and go.
Got it. Well, the like, you know me,
A little
like
bit.
we've known each other for a while. Um, so I like my probably young, definitely teenage, and for sure adult orientation is towards like kind of deeper internal exploration.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's something that I've learned to do, explore inside of me for sure. I used to just like to exist in that water. Like my favorite thing was an interaction where somebody was talking about their internal experience. And if
Mm-hmm.
it felt safe enough, I probably would talk about some of mine and we'd be sharing these internal waters together. And it just felt good to be swimming, feeling that. It feels so good to acknowledge inner life,
Mm-hmm.
unconscious life, non-rational life. It feels so good to be vulnerable and unprotected for a while. And if it were anything, it would really be like a warm water feeling. So I love that. And I think that what I could feel developing as I got into being a client in therapy, couples therapy, group therapy, like trying these different modalities, doing the first module of Phoenix Rising, getting into like Vipassana meditation, yoga year, like all these different things where like I was going into these realms. And what I was noticing is that they all supported that aspect of me going inside. And it looked like the path ahead of me was just to keep getting in the warm bath water and keep getting in the warm bath water and keep doing that. And it's like something really felt missing for me, which is like I don't know how to actually the best word that works for me now is directionality.
Mm.
And the reason that I chose the name of this is like
Is
we
this
can
where you plug
hyperlink
your business?
this. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna can we hyperlink
Yeah.
this?
Done.
Okay. Mickey, you got this? Okay. Or Zuzu, who's on it? Zuzu?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the I called it in the service of life, which I think relates a lot to impulse, as you explored and seem to, is that my sense is that life not only is bubbling and in our core, like it is a glow or an emanation, an emerging of some sort. It goes somewhere, like it wants to go somewhere. And in your explorations that I've done with you around authentic movement and the SEAM series and stuff, like the encouragement is around this word impulse of what wants to come, where does it want to go, what movement, anything. We're closing our eyes, we're letting self-consciousness slip away, even though of course we know we're being watched, and then all the benefits and fears that go with that. But like in coaching, part of what really drew me in is like, where does this want to go?
Mm.
And I don't care where it goes. Like
Right.
it wants
Yeah.
to circle around me 3 times and then go back inside, or it wants to like shine up into the light and attract thousands to follow the light. Like I don't care where it wants to go really, but it wants to go somewhere.
Mm.
And so I really like this idea of directionality being a part of the exploration of inner life and being part of the exploration and just being curious about it, not thinking that it should go anywhere in particular or any particular way, but recognizing that that's what life does. So how do we get enough out of the way that we can see where it wants to move, see
Mm.
where it wants to like run next and be next? And so, you and I share obviously this like belief that in addition to our storytelling minds, our bodies are holding so much of our experience, personal, familial, ancestral, cultural, like it's all being held here. And so we can go ideally, hopefully, it seems, a bit more directly to some of those things that are shapes that we're holding that are rigid in some way or reactive in some way. We can go a little bit more directly to them and soften them in such a way that life has a little bit more room to play to see where it wants to go. Like that's
Mm.
we share that belief that the body can do that. And so like when we do these practices in a session, it's really like it really is just a practice cultivating, first of all, the awareness of what kinds of shaping and are held in our bodies, and like giving that room to breathe, but then also watching where it goes and being really curious. And the
Mm.
meander, the surprise, like I mentioned in that live session that I did a couple days ago, like it's very often there. And I don't know what it is, but like when this client said honesty and then started to break that down and apply it to their life, something there was going to be extend beyond the walls of our 1 hour session.
Mm.
And if we met again, I feel like I could play a role in reinforcing it. But that person had something that was going to leave the set. They were leaving the session with, and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even a practice; it was a word.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I
I've
just
never
like
understood your
yeah,
name
yeah,
more. Like I love that you
yeah.
just went into that because I've read it in the service of life and it makes sense. But to hear you describe it, it is
In the
so
service of
much about
life.com.
in the service of life.com. It is it is so much about not just accompanying that energy, but collaborating. I remember Barry saying something about we talk about God. He's my teacher, but he talked about it he talked about it as collaborative, this the way we relate. And I talk about relationship to impulse, and one could say it's relationship to that, but it's how are you relating to that wants to happen. And and it doesn't mean it's always like, get out of the way and just follow. I think impulse has such a strong connotation of like no thought, whatever, impulsive, like just go. And that feels very much like you're behind impulse. You're not actually in a relationship to
Get
it.
out of the
You're
way.
being dragged by it. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm much more interested in cultivating relationship with, which means, yeah, sometimes it does lead. And sometimes it's you don't allow it to move at all, or whatever that relationship is. And but the way you're describing it as being in service to its aliveness, which is inherently in that is trusting that life or the energy of that is going to move toward goodness. I think somebody said something the other day that was so refreshing to me. Oh, it was a podcast. I mean, if you can stomach Krista Tippett, God love her, but she did do an interview with Nick Cave, and he's I was a really good interview, but he said, I think there are things in the world that do good, which is crazy because you're like, nothing is one-sided. But he said,
Mm-hmm.
music is in the service of goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Even the worst fucking music is and I was like, oh my God, he's so right. And actually, when you start thinking about any of the art, it's like almost all of it is in service to goodness. And you could maybe come back at me with like, what about stuff that perpetuates harmful images or painful? And even there, I might say, maybe perhaps it's representing shadow or evil or whatever. But there's something so real about recognizing there are places like you're describing that accompany or are in service to life. And I
Mm-hmm.
think music is one of those. I think dance is
I
one of those.
Yeah, I think so too. And music is like, do you know those videos where it's like there's like some blob of a baby who's like whatever, 9 months, 10 months, 12 months, whatever, and like
Dancing.
and then they put on music and the baby's just like
Yeah.
they're like
Yeah.
I think what what we perpetually forget, like yeah, I mean, if I had to cut to like what's the essential human dilemma? Estrangement from the non-human world is really it. Like we forget that we are just examples of life being replicated at producing and seeking continuity while we're alive. Like we're doing the exact same thing that everything is doing. We're not special. Like we're not different. And we tell stories, which is our superpower, I guess, seems to be at least on this planet or at this time or in this level of understanding what all this is. Like it seems to be a distinguishing factor how much we tell stories about things. But we're really just emergent life. Like you're born, you live for some time, and you die. The same with the plants, the same with the animals, the same with the planets themselves, the same with stars. Like it's just we're not special. And I think that um, when we get back in touch with that, we're just like everything else. For me, it's easier to be in collaboration, like you said, with just emergent life. Like I am a storyteller. I am a social mammal. Like I am these things, and those are going to inform and like create behaviors and longings for me for sure. I'm gonna be me, but I can also be curious about just being a point of life, just being an example of life moving and being curious about where it wants to go. Like being in recognition that I'm part of something inherently. And that estrangement versus the a part of is really just like, to me, that's like why crisis is, what we see and notice so much these days. Is
Do you
is
think
is kind of,
there's,
go ahead.
sorry, do you think there is an energy of life to collaborate with that is thwarting other life?
Um,
or
say ask
disrupting?
it ask it in a different way, maybe.
Like, I guess it's easy to sort of fall back. I think I'm thinking probably of more like social justice questions of when you are faced with the opportunity to flow with what's happening, because that's what life is, and it's unjust,
But I would
or
say, like,
disrupt. Yeah.
I mean, already an unjust situation is thwarting the life of somebody.
But
It's
I mean, on an
thwarting some.
individual level, like, how do you relate to the life that is happening there? Like, I can give a very concrete example.
Please.
Okay. Here's my story from yesterday. I was on the subway, which I have not been frequently riding, and it was crowded, and it was 7 in the morning, and this motherfucker was doing the polling. Big ass coat, because in New York in winter it's fucking coats, and there's more mass, so it's like taking up
Mhm,
more space. Leaning on the pole, but also putting his arm around the pole and then hand back in the pocket, so his whole
mhm,
body has contact as well as a wraparound limb.
mhm,
Way too much. So I can't hold on without jamming my hand between the pole and him, which I did, and sort of like made my knuckles move into his rib cage just a little bit.
sharpen them.
Sharpen.
Mhm.
No movement. And so I, in my brain is this whole running monologue of like, this entitled asshole. We're all compromising here. This is the deal in New York. No one's comfortable. Everyone's making concessions about what they want. You don't get to have all of what you want. So this is like, I'm getting furious.
Mhm.
And then I'm like, Lena, you don't understand. You don't know him. You don't know who this person. He could have no idea this is going on. He could be in deep psychic pain. He could be deeply neurodivergent, doesn't even aware of space or what he's doing. There could be so many, like, spend some time empathizing with the possibility he has no idea of like your irritation. So I did. And I was like, okay, I can go there. I feel that myself. Got it. But then some space opened up so I could move. And what I felt was like this absolute grab and texture of like, I want to right this wrong. This isn't okay. He's doing it to other people too. I need to make this different. And so then I was like, wow, I feel so righteous in my anger. And I feel so um, committed to righting this wrong, which is interesting also. Like, wow, that's interesting because I don't have all the information. What if you just left? So I left. I went to the open space. It was hard to do because it meant like leaving this arrangement. Go to the open space. And then I'm like, well, now I'm just going where it's easier. I'm unwilling to risk my own safety by saying something to him. I'm going where it's easier. I'm being complicit in allowing an injustice to continue. Here I
Mhm.
am, sort of like, so then I go, it's like I went through all these different conversations inside myself, not knowing how to accompany impulse or life in that moment. And, like in my,
Is
like
there a leaf
after,
blower coming through right now?
no,
Okay.
not at all. And in that moment of like, after I had moved was another conversation of perhaps this is not my time to teach. Like perhaps this isn't, like this is not, I don't need to provide this right now. Like maybe
Yeah.
there's a longer arc that he will find his lesson will be learned or whatever. And maybe there are other people. Anyway, I was telling this to Matt and he's like, do you remember, Weena, when this happened to Joni and she thought it was hilarious and she could only put two fingers on the pole and she just kept cracking up about it? And I was
Mhm.
like, oh, yeah. And it's like, well, yet again, another way. And I think what occurred to me is like, I definitely left feeling like I need to locate myself in all those voices. I can feel into all those perspectives. Where's Weena in there? And what I realized is I feel like I need to next time take all that into consideration and say out loud, hey, can you make a little space on the pole for my hand? Say it, just say it. And I
Mhm.
was afraid because also shit's scary in New York right now. People are getting shot in the face. I don't know. But I was like, you can take a little bit of risk, in this moment. That would be me feeling the impulse to say something, also feeling all the risk and fear, and accompanying the resistance or whatever in that moment towards something that felt like it had integrity in terms of me in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
It could be completely different next time, but it was like, it felt like, in the sidewalk, 6 different plants squirted up out of that little crack. And I wasn't sure which one to feed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I can relate to that, and it feel like what I heard you describe is like an intensely human experience, like a completely Homo sapien experience.
Yes.
Like like the plants aren't having those questions amongst themselves, and let's take a mammal, like everybody likes to talk about wolves and the pack and the alpha. Let's just use
Right.
that as like a simple
Okay.
example. Like let's say we're in a hierarchical mammal scenario, like, and you want to kind of like make sure that you're providing for the rest of your pack by making space on the pole or whatever it is, like, and so you would fight back to create space to ensure the survival of your pack, which maybe is just you and your internal parts at that point, but whatever. Like it's like it, I guess on one level it completely doesn't matter. Like it will sort
Right.
itself out. You're going to be alive for, like, let's say, like, you know inshallah, like 80 plus years,
Inshallah.
and then you'll be gone. And like,
Mm-hmm.
like it, none of this really matters in schemes that are beyond the human lifespan way of looking at things. Like it
Right.
really will sort itself out. It
Yes.
really will. And then, like, because we are alive and we have respect and reverence for life, as I think all living things do, try to stay alive. Like, I think there's like an inherent behavioral reverence and desire for continuity. Perception of threat, perception of safety is all part of that. Like, for sure, like we're in those spaces, but um, the characteristics that stand out the clearest in the example that you gave are how much you were inside of your head.
Right.
And like at the conclusion that you came to at the end of like, what if I said something? What if I created communication with whatever like level of settledness or righteousness or whatever level of risk that I perceive and feel like I could accommodate? We live in a culture that is about individuals and containing of individuals. And when we
Mm-hmm.
don't voice things, we don't give ourselves the opportunity to have a collective experience of that
Yes.
subway pole.
Right.
So yeah, that's clear. Like where you went with that as you reflected back on it is kind of what comes up for me. That's a way to break some of the cultural, like I'm an individual, and maybe I don't, maybe even you're carrying like I'm a white woman, I'm a this, I'm a that. Like you're carrying cultural identities about who you are, you as a person, and you're forgetting that we're all in that subway car. Like in a sense, like you're
Yeah.
putting a little bit more emphasis on what will I say. And I get that the motivation was about righteousness and protecting and making space for and standing up for. So like what really stands out is how much you were an individual, unvoiced and separate. And what really stands out is how many stories you had. You had multiple
Mm-hmm.
stories,
Mm-hmm.
including empathetic ones,
Mm-hmm.
like righteous ones, empathetic ones, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know ones. Like you had a lot of stories running through. And then you moved to a place where you had more space. And I would say that in the stakes of your particular situation of like getting yourself from one place to another on a shared mobility conveyance, you made great choices. But on a symbolic level, it is completely metaphorical for what's
Oh,
happening
100.
in the
Yes.
world, and it's
Absolutely.
completely metaphorical for like
Yes.
making of space and what's right. And and at the heart of it is like we are having a shared experience. We
Yes.
need to we like that word is so strong. We need to find a way to share. We need to find a way to be in collaboration.
Yes.
We need to find a way to hear and see each other. We need
Yes.
all of this. And we, like, you can't take without considering that you're part of a we. You need to
Right.
keep we central. You need to keep we as the starting point, as like as informing all of our basic choices in life is this we.
Mm-hmm. Mm,
I get that, like 100%. And in that situation, the symbolic value is high, but the real value is not.
right.
Like people might say, oh, energetically, anytime you have a chance to make change in the world, you should do it. I don't think that's the way other non-human life works.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't work here, they
Preach.
die or they
Yeah.
move or they branch in a different direction. Aikido is very much about like, here comes this energy that I don't want. I will help shift myself out of its way or redirect it.
Mm-hmm.
Like confrontation is only one option in
Well,
terms
and I
of
think
like,
about like,
yeah.
so I spun out and I went from like this very tiny moment into large system sort of global thinking of like you said, it's a huge metaphor. That's where I was
Yeah.
going. I was like, look at how I'm a part of all these operating systems. And I think the part that you're talking about that speaks to me that I'm so resoundingly agreeing with is yes, and there's tangible relationship right here between me and this person or between me and all these
Yeah.
people in the car. And so the we isn't so big. The we doesn't have to be global right now, because I think what I see a lot happening is individual, my state, enormous global. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, what about your neighbor next door? Like, do
Mm-hmm.
y'all talk? But like,
Mm-hmm.
these places, like the in between places, and to me it's like, I mean, you can look at it and physiologically these different states, but they're super reinforcing what you're saying, because if I move to this big giant we where I'm almost sort of don't exist, I lose accountability. And in the middle, and then when I'm in my own sort of internal experience, I'm not accountable. And so to me, it's the tangible body to body accountability of relationship, of speaking and sharing that you're talking about, where I
Mm-hmm.
think I would love to see a shift of emphasis. And I
Mm-hmm.
think like in what I like, it's so exciting to hear what you're saying, and you're saying it so beautifully, and it's making clear where I feel passionate, which is body to body, which is, like I started doing outside all weather class again and being outside with people in my neighborhood who I know, who are other moms, and sharing that feels deeply important to me. Running an
Mm-hmm.
authentic movement class in my neighborhood with the studio people that I know, like reaching out of my own little tiny spot to bodies close by. So maybe like 2, 3, 4 steps, not 100, 101, 102 steps
Mm-hmm.
feels important to me right now.
Yeah. And I like in like such a heightened crisis of culture, kind of like we're in,
Yeah.
like where like the like you said, the operating systems are breaking down or being challenged. At least, and again, let's stretch time out.
Yeah.
In our
Okay.
lifetimes, it's happening more now. It also happened more at certain points in our parents' lifetimes. It also happened more, like let's take a longer view and kind of hold that this is bigger than one human lifespan. Let's just hold that it's bigger than humans in general. But there are tangible things that are real that you can take action on local, national, international. Like there are actions that you can take to help reduce harm and to help advocate for systems that favor we. Like there are ways that you can do that. And I hope that people feel inspired by front edge activists to do like second tier activism, to join them on the front lines, to translate some of that energy into their local communities, to speak up in a situation of injustice that's happening right in front of you. And so for you as a body to body person who also is interested in having this energy infuse where you are and not just sort of like the scale of global size, like, yeah, it sounds like you came to the conclusion that you should have said something to that person, and maybe next time you will. And it's, not the one situation, and I advocate also for moving away as a perfectly acceptable response for another person. Like
Right. It takes all
don't,
kinds. That's the part that's like
yeah,
so important. It's like there's not one way to do it. There's not one level of engagement that's more right than another. There's not one system where somebody's for some people, I think plugging into the global scale is where they are in most service, where they feel most accountable, where they're able to show up the most. And I think
yeah.
that I want
You also don't have to be a type of person.
no.
I'm the one who dodges away, or I'm the one who confronts. Like, you can be
Right.
all of those people, and
Right.
that's like that discernment is some of what I think you were working through in your head there.
Mm-hmm.
But
Tell me.
let's practice.
Okay.
You're in the subway car, heavy
Mm-hmm.
coats. You don't even really like riding the subway that much lately. It's crowded,
Mm-hmm.
latent COVID fears in the back of your head.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're maybe a little bit late for something. You need a
That's not
poll.
ever true.
Okay. Then you're like, you see this pole, this guy is taking over all of it. He's basically like wraps himself around it like a serpent. And you can barely like, what
Ah,
are you gonna like? So, but you are going into it for the second time. Tell me in your own words and tone of voice, what would you say to him exactly?
I would
I'm,
move
no,
so that
don't say I would, just say it. I mean, if you need to set the context, you can, but I just want to hear your words.
I'm facing him like this. Like I want to
Okay.
move so that I can see his face, not to the side. And I want
Uh-huh.
to smile and I want to assume the best in this person. And I'm going to say, "Hey, good morning. Can you make a little space on the pole for my hand? Thank
And
you."
how does that sound? How does that feel?
So sweet. I love it. It just changed my whole morning.
Yeah, but
There
did
are
that
people
feel
who
like,
speak out. There also are the
yeah.
people who speak out without any reflection, often on
Mhm.
this, often on the subway too, where you're kind of like, actually, that level of engagement with the world around you only is asking for you to like spend a little more time inside. That's so
Mhm.
there's also like the folks that spend zero time with an internal life and
Yeah.
just externally engage. Yeah. Which was the other story of me like getting up and somebody being, I'm quite far from the door. My stop is coming. So I stand up and this person is like, damn, everybody's just trying to like rush off this train right now. I was like, actually just standing on up to head over there to get off. I didn't say that, but that was a moment where
Mhm.
I was like,
Let me
and you know,
let me make
there's
a
a,
case for something. Do you know what I
mhm,
think is like? Here's a simple home remedy that anyone can try.
okay,
Um,
apple cider vinegar.
with a little bit of cayenne. No,
But
not too spicy though. Not too much. Never too much.
Manuka
Uh,
honey. Okay.
no, my home remedy, I will tell you, my personal experience walking through life is that there is almost nothing
Your sound,
more. Am I still there?
yeah. It's a
There is
little,
almost.
go ahead. There is something. Go, go, go. You're good.
All right, I'm in a real inspiration point here. Can we
Okay,
just roll
sorry.
with it? Okay. No, I will tell you from my experience, one of the absolutely most affirming things that can happen in my life and has, and hopefully will continue, is having an interaction with a stranger.
Love it.
It to me, I think it's probably even more on the level of essential than our intimate relationships that are so um repeated, practiced,
Patterned.
dysfunctional, patterned, etc. Like, an interaction with a stranger it's like shattering a myth the myth of separateness. It's acknowledgement, every social mammal's dream experience being acknowledged. And it is a collaborative experience of some kind, use of the subway pole or whatever. When I went up to the city for the session, I was riding my bike to the train, and at this one awkward intersection where someone was turning left, another biker appeared, and then we ended up kind of like on the same street, and then we ended up next to each other, and then we talked for 3 blocks. Like, shout out
Love
for
it.
biking versus
Yeah.
personal vehicles as an example of things that keep us isolated. But like, we talked. Then I got on the train, and like you said, before you got to your stop, you were moving. Like, it was a couple stops before mine, and I see this guy get on with a bike, and my bike is in the bike spot. So I was like, come, you can use the spot. And I got mine out of the way, and he was appreciative. And like, those things are so affirming of they're just so affirming. It's
That's
like
why,
way more,
yeah.
it's like, to me, it's almost more affirming than hugging a friend.
Hmm.
It's like, it's
Mm-hmm.
just because it's like, it's talking to something a little bit more essential, not just my
Mm-hmm.
people.
No, I know.
In
No,
this case,
it's
the my
you're
people bikers were our community a little bit, but like, but there's like, it's bigger than just like my intimates, and it's so affirming. And I'm conscious of time, but I really wanted to zero in on that.
what of your time? Well, you're describing why I live in New York City because of that. You are forced to deal with people, and that can suck sometimes. And it can also be fucking magic. Like,
Mhm.
often it is. Often it is those moments. And when you open yourself up to it, it's right there. And people are, I think, like these cells bumping up against each other. There's some exchange of like chemical exchange. Like, it's literally like you're describing life happening. And
Mhm.
when you are able to experience those bumps of chemical exchange, there is a feeling, like you said, of we-ness. And it is uh it makes me love humans. I mean, I know we're fucked
Well,
up, but like,
let me, but
yeah,
may it also let you love
all
all of
living.
life.
Yeah, all of life and death.
Yeah. I like to snap out of human centric
I know.
experiences when I can. And but
You're good
yeah,
at that.
I
You're
love
you're
humans too. I
you're
love
my
humans too.
teacher in like opening up to more than human, because I was thinking too how much, I mean, I love bodies. Like, I can't explain it more than like the fact that our leg goes down and then it's like this paddle that like branches into little toes. It's so love it. I love
Adorable.
but I just love it. All the weird parts of our bodies. I don't know why. It's not very I do. And raccoons are
Think
cute
about
too.
teeth.
Look at that. Adorable. Raccoons are cute and their hands are
Mhm.
cute, but like, I don't know that I feel as adoring of a raccoon body. But I do hear you in that it's not that I think humans are better. I just think they're deeply worth loving. And so is all the other stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, bodies in particular,
Mhm.
earlobes.
Bacteria.
I mean, all right. Okay.
I mean, thanks you for all the work you're doing down in my gut. I appreciate you. But would I want to hang out? I
I don't
mean,
know.
like a movie, sure, I'd watch a movie with a bacteria. But like,
Maybe, but not share
yeah,
popcorn.
no.
Okay. You have to go?
I mean, I've like I'm enjoying our conversation, but I don't know if any other human would still be enjoying it at this point.
Girl, they got choices. They can stop.
Okay. Okay.
Nobody's forced to do anything. Y'all stop listening if you're bored. And we're not making you be
Yeah.
here. You know
Yeah.
what? Get off.
Look at your phone, hit the
Oh,
pause button, shut us up.
shut up. Stop listening. to our sibling voices.
Yeah. This way we had one message, it would be to stop listening to us.
Okay, shout out to our other sibling, just for a moment.
We got another one.
We got another one. She real.
What?
She's
Do you
like,
see that door over there?
yeah,
She's somewhere right out there in this house.
amazing. She's
Or
an
maybe she's at the
amazing,
studio. I don't know where she
or
is.
like packing food for people who don't get food,
She might be sorting lettuce. She might be picking out all of the ruined pieces of lettuce and saving the good
or
ones as we speak.
expertly unloading and reloading that dishwasher.
Or
Lots of
watching her children grow up and leave home and
Oh my
having all those
God.
feelings.
Oh my God.
She's doing all
Okay.
of that.
She's doing it all. And because of her doing it all, it allows us to do this. Let's just say
Right.
that. That's my shout out. The reason we can do this is because she doing that. And she always
Melinda,
has. She's kept us on our chore list.
she's an underwriter of this podcast, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Shout out,
We
sissy.
really appreciate her support.
Okay.
Should we go through the rest of our family members?
Oh, we are so interesting. Okay.
And if you're still listening, I'm sure you would agree.
Okay, for
Okay.
real, what? Yes. What if you, what is, well, you sort of just spoke about what is the thing you would probably want people to know the most? The separateness thing, right?
Like what I would want for the humans of the
Yeah.
world. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. What do you want for you most?
I mean, the peaceful relationship with what is. Like I really I toy and feel into so much this idea that there's a self, there's a story, there's human, there's actual stuff happening. Some of it's really good, some of it's really bad. There are my reactions to it, and those reactions are mine, but they're also white people's and men's, and you know, like it's not mine. But all of that is happening, and like I really love the idea of just having like a relationship with all those things. Like being acknowledging some level of existence that is or observational or experiential. It feels, it sees, but it doesn't really intervene. That's you doing that. That's Tim doing that. That's Weena doing that. That's Weena's ancestors doing that. That's Weena's trauma flaring up. Like all of those things can have their agency and engage in actual tangible actions. This thing just watches and feels and opens to. Like, oh, and accepts. And I like to so for me, I'm really just trying to find my way into that space of sort of like the outer teeth of a being, like of just being like, and it doesn't feel dispassionate or separate because none of the other stuff goes away. It's an addition. And that's why I like branch two of a conversation like this could be two highly uninformed people talking about internal family systems. But that's part of what I really like about that idea is it holds a scheme of a self, and inside of that self are all these parts. And your goal isn't to get rid of them, not feel them. Your goal is actually to engage deeply with them and also maintain a holding space. And in the case of IFS, definitely sort of a decision-making space. In the case of my own personal life, I might imagine even a sphere around that doesn't actually even exhibit much choice or impulse of its own. It really just sees and feels. But I like that structure because I think it kind of reflects what I am. And my goal is to inhabit all of those layers and especially to cultivate the one that's like the weirdest and the least human and the least tangible. Like that makes sense. It's something to bridge into the stuff that isn't me, to bridge into like kind of the bigger stuff. Meditation is a big part of that. Psychedelics, a big part of my sense of that, like my felt sense of that. But neither of those experiences like feel like where I need to exist. They just feel like they've kind of I don't feel like I need to exist in that outer layer. I just want to be permeable to it. That's what I want for myself.
I want that for you too.
Mhm.
And also spinal extension. Mm. I'm feeling like we're coming to a conclusion, that our plane is landing.
Mm-hmm.
Just checking
What
and
in your
just
body tells you that we're
my
arriving at that place?
ass from sitting.
Okay, legit.
Yeah,
That's
a lot
fair.
of sitting. Not used to it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I guess I could arrange things so I can move around more. Um,
Like a little
yeah,
shirt
I mean,
mic.
hmm?
Mhm. A
There's
little shirt
something
mic.
special about doing this with you, because not just, I mean, because you're my brother, but also because you can see all those parts you just described. I mean, there's some you don't know, obviously, but like through time, knowing me, you've known me since I was born, that like there's a view that you have of me that's so comprehensive, and in a way that I feel so deeply seen. And I'm not at all unaware of how special it is that I feel you see all those parts, and I also feel incredible freedom to be all of them. I don't feel limited by our relationship and like your expectation of me as your sis. Like I don't feel the traps of that. And I recognize that as unique and special. And
Mhm.
um so it's like I don't know that I've ever done this with someone that I felt so known by and felt so like at ease and comfortable inhabiting these different parts of myself, which you've been a part of, theme and other stuff. But it's just not lost on me, Tim. It's like pretty fucking special.
Mhm.
And also, if you weren't my brother, I would be like, he's so rad. I'm so into this guy. Like, and put in your hyperlink if anybody
We
wants somatic coach.
we would totally be friends, wouldn't we?
Oh my God, besties.
But it is special. I appreciate, especially as I talk to other people through my life about sibling bonds. They come in so many flavors, like so many, so many. And even between the three of us, we have all of our different kind of ways of being. And but to be in kind of like, yeah, I feel like I'm in session with a trusted heart traveler when I'm with you. And it opens the door to tenderness for sure. It opens the door to like some of this intellectual like map making and erasing and drawing and erasing. And it also like just really feels like connecting and sweet. Like it's
And funny.
play is there for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah. I love you, Lena.
I love you too. Thank you so much for joining Tim and I and listening in. If you're curious about Seam, I have an intro that's coming up on February 12th. It's virtual. It's at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. And I'll be going over what Seam is, how it works, how it started, and what these two modalities, somatic experiencing and authentic movement, have to do with each other. Please join me. You can find all the info at weenapauly.com. Take good care. Until next time.